Day would be perfect. Because that's what our whole program is about, is building up mothers and fathers and families in our community. We're a free voluntary program. The only people that can make our program mandatory is the Department of Children's Services, and sometimes they do. And that takes a lot of work because we're usually getting those families in crisis situations. So we have to get invested very quickly. But more so than that, we have to get those families invested very quickly because, as you guys know, if you're not invested in something, it's not going to work for you. You're not going to want to make any changes. So I'd like to start off a little bit just by telling about what type of grant we have. We're funded through the Department of Children's Services and through the Department of Health. They work very well together because that gives us awesome initiatives like breastfeeding initiatives and being able to work in the community and talk to our local patrons to show their support for breastfeeding, because as we know, it's the law that you can feed your baby wherever you want. And so we like to build that awareness as well as offer breastfeeding support for moms that are committed to breastfeeding or want to try breastfeeding or want to supplement with breastfeeding. We're just really happy with whatever they do as long as they're feeding their babies. We're good. We also have awesome initiatives like right now we're working with Johns Hopkins and the Eviction Institute. I'm part of a study for communication because I've been in this job for 5 years. I have a very high retention rate with my families, and so they're kind of looking at different aspects of home visiting programs across the United States and seeing what works and what doesn't, and helping break down communication for newer home visitors that are going in to work with families in high stress. We also are infant massage instructors. Our overall goal in our program is to lower the risks of child abuse and neglect. So that skin on skin, that hands-on, that touching, we really promote those aspects of bonding and attachment. So most of us are certified lactation, or we're also certified lactation instructors, but we're also certified infant massage instructors. So there's a lot of awesome things and a lot of awesome components about our program, but if you don't really know what we do, that doesn't really mean much to you. So we are able to take prenatal up to 2 weeks of age. That's our target enrollment date right now. And we're able to stay with a family up to 3 years. So when you think, there was a line today in the hymn that says, "My mother's voice gave meaning to the stars." And so it just kind of hit home, because what if your mom's voice isn't very strong? You know, what if you're a newborn baby, and as we all know, that serve and return relationship with parents helps build that brain development in a healthy way. They need to get that when they're putting something out, when they're crying or they're cooing. That response that we give to baby is what helps build healthy brain connections and create security for a strong bond and attachment. And when we're dealing with moms with postpartum depression or that are constantly living in high stress situations, they don't have a lot of voice sometimes to give to baby. So what we find over time is that brain development is impacted very severely at times, depending on the severity of inattention that baby might be getting. So that is a very, very strong indicator for us. When we walk into a home, we have documentation that we do called cheers. So we're looking, is mom responding to baby's cues? Is mom expressing with baby? Is she talking to baby? Is she showing baby empathy? Is there a dance between them? Do we see some rhythm and reciprocity? And then are they smiling? Because joy opens up all areas of our brain, so even in times of stress, we're more safe, secure, and ready to learn. So if we're promoting positive parent-child interaction, even if it's 1 hour a week in our visits, we're opening that family up to some joys. We're wanting to see some smile, and we're wanting to start building on that over time to increase those smiles. So those indicators are something we look at to see where mom is, where baby is, where the family dynamic is. And we use our curriculum, which is called Growing Great Kids and Growing Great Families, to basically service this family. We are basically a parenting program and case management program rolled into one. So with that being said, we've now increased our outreach to try to hit more of those prenatal providers and our pediatricians right out of delivery. Because the one thing that I always say, when we have these DCS referrals and we're already in the midst of crisis when we get them and our parents are already stuck down in fight, flight, or freeze and they're just in survival mode, like if I just had more time with them, like if I had more time with them, I don't even know that we'd be here right now. Because the amazing thing about this program is you do see change. And sometimes it takes a long time, but that's where that longevity comes in, that we're able to stay with those families. We get them for 3 years. So I'd like to give a couple of little testimonials, if that's cool, of some joys that my parents have experienced just in the past couple of months. I have a mom who's around 19 years old. She was a DCS referral, and she was not happy about it. I mean, she's a baby. She's already had one baby taken away from her because she was addicted to opiates very strongly. She also dabbled in some other types of drugs. So by the time she had this baby, it was an NAS baby, which is the neo-abstinence syndrome where they're withdrawing from opiates. And that baby, she was able to stay with baby for just a week in the delivery, what is it? OB, what is it called? I don't know why I'm blanking right now.
Hospital.
Yes, thank you, hospital. Goodness gracious. So she had baby, and she was able to stay with baby in the hospital while they monitored baby, and then she got freaked out. She had nobody to turn to for any type of advice or what's going to come next. And she basically signed, because DCS was knocking on her door and wanted to take her baby. So she handed them over to someone else. And that has entrenched her basically in stress constantly for over the course of the past year. And she ended up binging, and it was a horrible mess. She became pregnant again. And that's when we got this referral. So by the time I got her, she was angry and bitter. She had been working really hard, and she had been clean for several months because she didn't want the same thing to happen to this baby that she was pregnant with. And she just felt hopeless. So once I was able to get that referral and I was able to get in that home, and we started working on a lot of different things subtly to get her invested, she was able to really start calming down and focus on the pregnancy that she was having now. She was able to get guidance. She was able to have someone advocate for her. Because, I mean, I'm watching other cases happen, and I'm like, I cannot believe this woman does not have her kid back yet. Like, they're just giving kids away left and right over here, and, like, she's fighting so hard. And no one had been there to stand up for her or advocate for her at child and family team meetings. So we were able to walk alongside her, and she recently, because we've done a lot of work on adverse childhood experiences, which I'll talk about in a second, adverse childhood experiences and toxic stress. So she was able to feel empathy for her baby that she wanted back so desperately. And look at it this way, like, I can't rip her away from her foster family because that's a trauma. But I need my baby back. So that foster family and that mom just signed joint custody, and she's able to get that baby every weekend and every other week in the summer. And that was a huge success. She's amazing. She's an amazing mom. She's actually also a part of this study with me. She's the one whose home visits that I record for the communication study that I'm doing. So I've been able to watch her life turn around. She's gone from like instability, homelessness, having nothing but a garbage bag of clothes, to having an apartment. Her partner works and helps stable, keeps the home stable so that she can actually stay home with this baby because she lost so much time with the other one. And she's doing amazing. I have lots of other success stories, but that's my biggest and most recent, and it was amazing. Another one that it's not like complete yet, is I have a mom that we've actually re-enrolled into this program. She is like a fertile myrtle. I mean, she can be on birth control and she's getting pregnant again. So she's got 6 children overall. And the youngest 3 are 7 and under. So it gets a little crazy and hectic. And she was in a severe domestic violence situation. Severe. When we finally were able to, we do goal planning with our families because we want to start creating that positive reward, kind of centric to their brain, rewarding that complex thinking that helps them think ahead in crisis situations. And so we finally get her down, and I'm like, I don't know what I'm going to do. I just don't know what I'm going to do, because she kept just welcoming him back. Like, if he wanted to come by, he was coming by. And when I tell you it was a dangerous situation, it's a dangerous situation. He is mentally unstable. I've seen things firsthand. I don't know if you have any experience with domestic violence, but I actually had her go around the wheel of power to all the different types of abuses, and she named examples from every single one. So when she was able to just tell him no one time, that was all she needed. That was the key that she needed to be like, I can do this. She called everybody. She's like, I told him no. And she was so happy. So she's currently in a situation where she's facing possible eviction. And it was through the advocacy of our program and getting her into some emergency therapy, getting her with some advocates that she's already utilized in the past, and making sure she kept those connections. She's now able to stay in her apartment a little longer, get stable, and I really do believe we're going to see some good successes out of that, because she is in an unsafe situation right now because he has moved right down the road. And he is walking by her apartment constantly. And it's put her in that fight, flight, or freeze mode, and she's just been immobile. Like, she just doesn't even know how to function. So we're getting things in place, and I don't know that that would be something that she could have navigated on her own. So we're getting to go into these homes with these families and literally change life trajectories. We're able to see successes in these families where sometimes I never thought were possible. And it's important, I feel like, to this church, because it's impacting this community on the regular. Like, we're constantly, I was talking to one of my DCS partners Friday, and he was like, I've never seen so many babies. I've just never seen so many babies. I don't know what we're going to do with all these drug-addicted babies. So our thought is, the earlier we can get in there, the better. If doctors and nurses and anybody whatsoever that has any type of, we take word of mouth referrals. If there's someone that needs support, we're going to try our best to get them in. Again, the earlier the better. And I keep talking about fight, flight, or freeze and being in that survival mode. One of the other things that we do is we're trained on adverse childhood experiences. Has anybody heard of those?
I had a few.
I have a lot. I have a high ACE score. So adverse childhood experiences is a new push that we're seeing in the state of Tennessee. And it's based on a study that was done in California by white middle-aged families. This doctor started noticing stuff like, why are they having lung cancer when they've never smoked? Like, what is happening here? So over time, he did some research with his clients, and it was a family practice. So it was a great longitudinal study, and he was able to look and see these families, there are 10 questions. Did you divorce? You know, did your parents get divorced? Did you grow up with someone with mental health issues? Was there domestic violence in your home? Was there sexual abuse in your home? Remember, these are just white middle-aged folks that you wouldn't think had a care in the world because they're just living the American dream. And he noticed that the majority of them had 4 or more ACE scores. So that study doesn't even take into account what children are experiencing in urban areas where they're watching people get shot in the street and seeing severe traumas on the regular. It takes into account just our day-to-day lives. Like, this is stuff that was our normal. And it shows clearly over time, and they're also adding more research to that daily. They've included epigenetics in there now. I'm not sure if you're familiar with that, but it's basically where, okay, so I'll tell you the story. So there's like this little mouse, and they're like, we're gonna spray some cherry blossom scent, and then we're gonna shock you. So this little mouse is going through this maze, and he's like, ooh, it smells so good in here. And he gets shocked. That mouse's children's children will be very wary every time they smell some cherry blossoms. Very wary, very wary. And adverse childhood experiences studies show us that this part of our brain, they call it the reptile brain sometimes. I don't know if y'all watch Dexter, but his little reptile brain gets going. And it's that's that section of our brain where we go into fight, flight, or freeze. We train over these things. We're able to talk to our parents about these things and give them science-based information as to why they're reacting certain ways when they're experiencing trauma. It's helped me out, that's for sure. And we're able to say, this is not how we want to build our baby's brain, right? So like, let's look at ways to do some healthy things with baby and help combat these adverse childhood experiences that we've already experienced so far. And it really helps parents grasp that they have the power to change. Even though maybe they grew up and they were impacted severely in high trauma situations and that they have a hard time coping, it gives them that reason like, okay, yes, I'm making my own choices, but there's a reason, and now I can retrain my brain. So it really gives them good information, as well as just providing information. I mean, it's good for me, and I'm just leading the program, I'm not in it. So I'm just leading these visits with my families. I'm not even experiencing their life right now. But life hits us all hard sometimes. And the way we cope is going to impact what we do with the rest of that life. So we want to build resiliency in our families, and we want to give them the tools to be able to be resilient and bounce back. So the Center for the Study of Social Policy, we combine that with our 5 protective factors. We want to promote resiliency. We want to empower them with the knowledge of child development. If you know what to expect from your child, if you know what's normal developmental behavior, then you've got the tools to make that work either in your favor or be able to come up with strategies to help alleviate that stressor. Because as you guys know, kids can be stressful. And when you don't know why they're doing what they're doing, like climbing is a developmental milestone that children have to go through. But when you're a single mom with like 20 kids, sometimes, just kidding, a lot of kids, and you've got one that you just can't keep off the counters over time, that becomes a red flag for that mama. She's living in high stress. It becomes a red flag for that baby when you don't understand that your baby needs to climb, so let's get him out of the house and take him to the park. Then that becomes a red flag for some child abuse and neglect when you're already in a high stress situation. We want them to understand social and emotional development of their children, how to build those brains in healthy ways, why it's important to coo back to your baby, and how that impacts their brain and what that helps develop over time. The other is building social connections. We want parents to have healthy models. We want them to be able to see other parents functioning in a healthy way with their child. We want to be able to model that behavior for these parents. And then we in turn want these parents to model that for others. So we do parent group meetings once a quarter. We're currently looking for spaces and availability for that. We just had one at the Science Center. One of our kids peed all over the floor. It was great. We had an awesome time. But I am very sorry about the floor, Mr. Bill. And that was the first time that some of these families had ever even gotten to go to the Science Center. And they were just amazed. and they just could not, they wouldn't leave. I was like, they're gonna kill us, get out of here. So they're getting some good opportunities, and they're getting some good opportunities to be around other parents. I'm not quite sure when I started, so I'm trying to hurry, but, so promoting those social connections. And then the biggest thing, that fifth one, is connecting them to resources. When they're in times of need, being able to know where to go, and a lot of them don't. Before I started this job, thankfully I was at another job, so when I lost my job, because it was grant-based, and it was that time that they were like, the government's gonna shut down if we don't figure out the budget. Yeah, my funding went. So I was one of the ones that got cut. And if I had not known how to find resources and linkages in my community, it would have been very difficult for me. So a lot of parents, sometimes life hits you hard and you've never dealt with situations before, you don't know where to go to help with an electric bill or something to just ease your stress a little bit so you can use this money to feed your kids and this money to pay your electric bill. They're constantly in survival mode. So we're able to link them to those resources and help strengthen that family in that capacity. If you guys have any other questions, we do have our program in other communities such as Bedford, Franklin, but we're housed by Centerstone, and they are housed by the Center for Family Development. So if you guys have any referrals, if you work in a capacity that you're like, I really want to make referrals to this program, just let me know. We can set up a time to talk, and we can come up with a partnership to help all the families. We want to help all the families. We want everybody to be successful and good, and we want every mother, we want their voice to give meaning to the stars for their babies. I'm done.